All right, next up, we've got Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Moral development is obviously your idea of right and wrong. Lawrence Kohlberg is going to be inspired by Jean Piaget, who was the topic of our last recording, Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Lawrence Kohlberg looked at this and said, well, that's great, seeing how people think, but let's see how they make moral decisions. Let's see how they learn their ideas of right and wrong. Basically, this is really easy. I will give you the clue in on this, and I'll go into some more detail. But basically, what he found was that very early in life, a child's idea of right and wrong is going to come from the authority figures in their life. So usually for most of us, that's mom and dad, and they're going to do that with pure, good old-fashioned operational conditioning. You're punished for doing good things. You're rewarded, or you're punished for doing bad things and rewarded for doing good things. Hopefully that wasn't a Freudian slip there. And you are, that's the way you get your idea of right and wrong. He then says that it moves to your peer group. As a child starts school, they start to become much more concerned about what their peer group thinks. And so that's where our ideas of right and wrong come from. That's why it's very important for you when you become parents to really steer your children towards good friends. And then finally, Lawrence Kohlberg said there are some of us that get to a level where we're determining those things for ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that we get to pick the ideas of right and wrong, but it means that we're trying to make those decisions based on personal beliefs, that sort of thing. The problem is you can't really give people cool things like the cow drawing that we did for Piaget and ask them about moral development. What you have to do is you have to use what he called dilemmas. And so dilemmas are little short stories, and he would ask his subjects to give an answer to them. I'm going to show you the most famous. This is the most famous. It is the Heinz Dilemma. As we go through, I'm going to pop them up for just a second. So what I want you to do is read this and just pause the video, read over this, and find a piece of scratch paper somewhere or pull up a Word document on your computer and just type what you think might be the answer for this. And then we'll see that reflected in some of the responses. So I've got, there are just three stages here. I've got a stage explanation, but then a couple of possible answers. You may find your answer is in a couple of different stages, but just to give you an idea. So go ahead and pause this. Give yourself a second to answer the Heinz Dilemma, and when you're ready, we'll keep going. All right, our first level is the pre-conventional level. This is going from ages 0 to 7, so it's going to take in the first two levels of Mr. Piaget's theory that we looked at earlier. Mr. Kohlberg here is going to basically say that your idea of right and wrong is determined by the consequences of your actions. So very much, like I said, connecting back to conditioning. And the people that are going to reward or punish our behaviors are our parents. The thing that helps with this stage is a child is very egocentric. They're kind of the center of the universe. And you can imagine coming out of that sensory motor stage where you've been there for everything. You're the main character in the story that would be easy to be egocentric. And so in this level and in these first two stages of this level, you see the child being very interested in what this means for them. To give you an example here, stage one answer would be something like Heinz shouldn't steal the medicine because if he's thrown in prison, that will mean he's a bad person. It's the punishment that's determining the good or the bad. And so that would be a stage one answer to that question. Stage two, self-interest. Heinz should steal medicine because he will be much happier if he saves his wife. Or he shouldn't steal money because he's going to get over her death probably more quickly than his jail term will be over with. Again, it's very egocentric. It's very self-centered. Answers would be coming from this particular stage. Second stage is the conventional level, 7 to 13. Kohlberg said most of our decisions get made here. You'll make decisions overall in all three of these stages over the course of most regular days. Um, Same thing. If you're looking at that first stage, somebody that doesn't eat a particular thing because they know that they're going to gain weight, that's thinking about it from a punishment idea, right? In the conventional level, we don't worry so much about authority figures as we do our peer group. Social psychologist tells us we like to conform, we like to fit in. It's a safety mechanism for us, and so the idea is that these people want to do. Um, want to fit in with people. So they will conform to, as you can see on the slide, the ideas of what a good boy or a good girl would do. And ultimately deciding to take into account what many people need versus what individuals are. So you start to see people kind of coming out of that egocentricity. It's interesting when you think about this idea. We're having one of these debates today in our society, right? As I'm recording this, it is the pandemic of 2020, and people are arguing about um, some of the social distancing restrictions and the quarantining. And the idea is how much are the lives of people worth versus the effects it's having on our economy and some other things. And so people are having some of those debates right now. Stage 3 answer: Heinz should steal the medicine because that's what a good husband would do, or he shouldn't, because good people don't steal. But again, you're trying to fill that idea in society of what a good person does or does not. Stage 4, he shouldn't steal it because stealing's bad and he's not a criminal. Or he should steal the medicine because murder's a worse crime than theft. Think about it, our whole legal system is kind of built on stage 4 of level 2 here. And it's the idea of, think about murder, right? If you plot and plan out somebody's murder, that's murder 1. Right, and the consequence is going to be much greater than if you were to accidentally kill someone in an auto accident. Right, both are obviously bad actions. Both will have consequences, but the consequences are much more severe in a murder 1 case than in a manslaughter case. Finally, we've got the post-conventional level, and this is where the person starts to decide some of these things for themselves. One of the ways to think about this is if you're church going, kind of the idea that a lot of times younger children will go to church because their parents are taking them. Eventually, it becomes kind of socially expected. Maybe they're in a youth group or something like that. But eventually, there's going to come a point in life where a person needs to decide for themselves whether or not they're going to buy into the ideas of that belief system. That's what's going on here in the post-conventional level. People that are making decisions here are trying to make decisions more by universal principles, the idea of absolute truth or right and wrong, rather than worry about what society is telling them or what their own self-interest are saying. And so in this stage, Heinz should steal because everyone has a right to choose life, or he shouldn't steal because everyone has a right to fair compensation. That second one's a very capitalistic idea, but basically the idea that you're looking at where these rights are coming from. And then finally, Heinz should steal medicine because saving a human life is a more fundamental value than the property rights of another person. So both of them are important, but we assign them an importance kind of on a tier system, right? And so the idea is that people start to look at some of these decisions and make them for your own. Like I said, the good news is most of the decisions we make during the day, we don't have to go up here because this is the kind of stuff that'll make your head hurt a little bit. But we hopefully get to a point where we're capable of making decisions here. And again, just a simple way to remember that moral decisions or ideas of right and wrong are first under the influence of our parents who can reward or punish us. Then it moves to our social group who kind of look at us, can exert peer pressure. And then finally, you've got some decisions that are being made at a level where it's really the individual who's having to come up with that idea of right and wrong. If you're interested in the idea of universal truth and justice, I'd encourage you to take a look, if you haven't, at Dr. Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. He's got a really good argument in there about those types of rights. So I hope you enjoyed Kohlberg. We've got one more theory we're going to do. Got him Eric Erickson and his theory of psychosocial development.